Welcome back to Moving Forward. Today's discussion is going to be about self-pity, and I have titled it Suck It Up Buttercup. Most of us have heard the expression suck it up buttercup, and we've probably used it a time or two, either towards ourselves or someone else. I think many times we get caught up in ourselves and our situations and maybe what we feel overwhelmed with, and we have pity parties. Many times those issues can be brought on by family or friends, neighbors, work, church, any of those things. But at some point we have to quit having our pity parties. And so I want us to talk about what does the Bible say about being self-centered and having pity parties. So first I'll go ahead and just admit that I find myself having pity parties quite often at my home, because sometimes I get overwhelmed and I feel like I do the brunt of the housework. And having small children, it can be a lot of housework at times. I have one who is old enough to help, but he doesn't want to help most of the times. So I find myself getting upset and just being in my emotions and wondering why this is happening to me, and nobody really wants to help me, and just, it can go on for a few hours sometimes. But I'm not proud to admit it, but I will admit it. And so I have to, those times, usually it's at the end, after I've gone through all of this, to then later think how ridiculous I probably sound, and am I setting a good example for my children? And I try to then be thankful for the things that God has given me, even though they are difficult, and I get tired of doing them all the time. I have to be thankful that I have a house, and be thankful I have children to make messes, and
count your blessings.
I know, right? So
my dad would always say, because when I was growing up doing dishes, like I would grumble, and he's like, "Nope, you should thank the Lord for dirty dishes. That means you got food and you got dishes." And I didn't understand that till much later in life. I'm like, I'm not thanking him for these dirty dishes.
It's so true, but in the heat of the moment, you want to have your pity party, and you want somebody to help you, or you just want to throw up your hands and say, "Forget it all."
That's right.
We'll just live in slop.
And I've done that sometimes. Like, let's see how
far it'll go.
It goes far.
It goes far.
I know, and it's and I question, is that the right way to handle it? Because I wonder what my children think when they see me doing things like that.
And what are they learning from you?
I know. Am I handling it right? But I also want them to learn how to be responsible and do things on their own as well.
But I think we get like weighed down in life, right? With trials and situations, even simple things, right? Just laundry and dishes.
Yeah.
We don't set out intending that, right?
Of course.
But the more we focus on those things, it kind of helps us, pulls us away from what we should be focused on. But a lot of times we're either scared, we're hurt, we're frustrated. So there's an emotion attached to our self-pity that caused that. So
it's funny, a lot of our conversations are about emotions that have caused these reactions.
And I think that's the female in us, because isn't that how men describe us a lot, as those emotions?
So emotional.
We don't know how to handle those emotions, but we all have emotions. We all. And I was thinking when you were naming off these things, like the family and the friends and the work, and I think sometimes it's the weight of all of it. It's not necessarily just one thing. It's how everything just builds.
The compounding effect of it all.
And you just get to the point where I can't do this anymore. And I've been guilty of taking like a mental day, and you find yourself almost depressed, and you're wallowing in that pity that I just can't deal with all this. And it's like I asked the Lord one time, why do I do this? Because sometimes it may be 2 days that I just have to get away. And I think it's like an emotional overload that you just need. I look at it like a computer I needed to reboot. But, and I did find myself talking to the Lord about it, and it was like, why do I do this? And help me not to spend too much time in it. It was, I think, growth, recognizing why it was happening, why I was doing that, and letting him show me that, stay focused on me. Don't let it overwhelm you.
Yeah.
And it was so true. It was when I was taking my eyes off of him and what he had called me to do. And like you were saying, it's a blessing to have a job.
Yeah.
Some people don't have that.
Yeah.
They're really looking for that and they don't have it. Some people don't have family that they get to deal with all the craziness of some of our families. And and we really need to stop and count our blessings sometimes and not always concentrate on the bad. It's sort of like the cup's half full and not half empty.
Yeah.
That we look at it from a different perspective and focus on him and how he wants us to really enjoy life.
Well, I think, even in the trials, right, he gives us those to show others, right? So in your workplace, you're given tough assignments or tough people because other people see how you handle that, right? And if you're like, just suck it up, buttercup, instead of extending them some grace, there are people that see that. So sometimes we have to say, okay, it's not really about this situation. If you and I are having that, it may be about Jamie who's looking from the outside in on that situation. So for me, that's what I try to keep in mind. Okay, what is this hurdle? It's not for me, right? Sometimes it is for strength, but normally it's for someone else that's looking to see how you handled that, or maybe 2 months later, okay, they now have a hurdle, right? So you got to realize, okay, this isn't about me, right? This is for God's purpose.
Right.
Well, and in that too, just thinking, if they give you a task and then they give you another task and another, and you think, well, why do they keep piling all this work on me? Look at these 10 other people that are sitting around doing nothing. But then you also have to be appreciative that they see something in you to give you so many responsibilities. They trust you.
Yeah.
So then you have to be thankful to God that he has equipped you to be trustworthy and the ability to do those jobs and to do them well, you know, and be trusted. So you have to always find something to be thankful for in those situations.
But I think even if you're done wrong, right? Having a response if somebody's like, well, how are you doing that? I'm not here working for this person. I'm doing my work for the Lord, right? Like that's the reason that I'm here. And sometimes that just opens up conversations that you can have with people as well. So even in the rewarding work, sometimes there's the not rewarding work that you have that opportunity to kind of point it back to God.
Right. That leads into my verse that I picked, is Philippians 2, verse 3. Let nothing be done through selfish ambition or conceit, but in lowliness of mind, let each esteem others better than himself. Don't do anything just thinking of yourself. You have to think of others and how it can affect someone else, and how, you know, it may help someone else grow and maybe step out and do, whether it's something at work or step out in faith and do something. You have to think that it's not necessarily a punishment to have so many responsibilities, or you know, somebody finds favor in you, so they're trusting you to do that.
And like you said, Latasha, sometimes it opens the conversation up. It's, you know, you get an opportunity to talk about the Lord, because that's what the Word tells us to do, is we do everything unto the Lord, you know, including work, even though I have to remind myself of that a lot sometimes. But it's true, and people see that, and it's amazing how sometimes people will make comments about that, and you're like, and I didn't really think that I was projecting that, but it's a very big compliment that they can see the Lord working through you.
The other verse, and I'm looking for it right now because I know I marked it. Oh, it's Colossians 3. Verse 23, and whatever you do, do it heartily as the Lord, as unto the Lord, and not to men. And I often use that for my son, but I really should remind myself of it a lot. Is like, you need to be doing something just like if Jesus was standing right beside you. Is that how you would respond?
Would you be that same way over the laundry? No, you'd be
like,
I know, this is the greatest thing ever.
I need to remind myself of that.
Well, that's often the case, right? The things we want to teach our children, we should be like, I remind myself of
I'm
that
not even
too.
doing it myself. It's like a kick in the pants.
God works in mysterious ways.
He does, for sure. I think we should always just be in prayer.
Yes.
Constantly talking to God through our day, and that will, help our attitude, help us not to be so caught up in ourselves.
I think when I looked at it, right, I looked at a couple of different examples. So one was the Israelites, right? A lot of self-pity there.
Right.
They were never looking forward. They were always looking back. And I think if you're in self-pity, you're either stuck in that moment or you're looking back, well, it used to be this way, never forward looking, kind of the woe is me. And sometimes they spent too much time, right, dwelling on it. And sometimes you just have to suck it up and move on. It is what it is. And we forget that the Lord provides. Like he talks about that in Deuteronomy chapter 2. He provides, not what we want, right, but what we need.
Absolutely.
So sometimes we don't want the laundry or the hard work, but he has a purpose for that, right? Because even through those household chores of laundry or dishes or cooking, right, you're setting an example for your children of kind of that good work ethic. And what does that look like? Or at work, you're setting an example to maybe lost people. And we just sometimes want the easy path, but he keeps giving us mountain or boulder after boulder, but he gives us what we need in that moment. So
just thinking what you're saying along the lines too, many times in church life we find ourselves wondering why people aren't serving. And then there's some who do so much. I mean, what's the saying that 20% do 80% of the work at the church? And if you're in that 20%, you can feel like, I'm doing all of this stuff. Why aren't these other people doing things? And that's not always for us to figure out.
No.
You have to give them to the Lord, because it's really a heart. It's a matter of the heart and where they're at in their walk with Christ, and are they really seeking a way to serve?
Right. The reason that you're doing it, I mean, when you're serving, I mean, is it unto the Lord, or are you doing it, look at me, look at me, look at me, and look at everything that I do around here? It's, and some people almost use it to be out of church, if you know what I mean. I mean, some people get so busy doing the church work that they're not sitting underneath the teaching of the Word. And it's surprising to be observant of that. And because I know when I'm called to do things on a Sunday, it's like, ooh, I really want to be in church today. I really want to hear this, and I have a hard time with that, because it's like my heart's there, but I need to give 100% of my heart over here, because the Lord wants me to do this today.
Well, and I think he, in church ministry, right, we were called to that. Right. So if we're focused on, if I'm focused on Jamie that's not doing it, or Pam, I've lost the purpose, right? He's called me to be a part of the children's ministry for the children. Right.
It's all about them.
It's all about them. So I think we have to, again, as we started, focusing our eyes back on Jesus in this. So
because someone has to teach them. I mean, they don't understand grown up lessons about God. You have to bring it down to them, and it's amazing how many times that you're teaching them something, and bam, something hits you right in the face and says, okay, Lord, that was for me today.
Right, that was not for the children. It's funny, my friend just posted her lesson from yesterday, and she's like, I don't know if any other adults out here need this today, but this was for me. And it was about mistakes, right? And you think, okay, that's a good lesson for kids, but such a good lesson for adults too.
Right.
I think the other example that I had when I kind of was reading through, people in the Bible that had self-pity was Elijah. Right? So he was tired, and then he got scared, right? And he's like, well, I'm just going to sit down and forget it all. And we sometimes get like that, just forget it all, right? We've done so well on the journey, like he did. And then he got defeated by one woman. Right.
But too, he felt like he was the only one left. And it was like, but you're not. And how many times do we feel that way? I'm the only one, like doing church work. I'm the only one taking care of this, and you feel so all alone in that, and you're going through that self-pity that's
Well, and it was interesting when I
Yeah.
was listening to this and we were talking about suck it up, right? I was like, well, kind of in both of these with the Israelites and Elijah, God's saying suck it up,
Suck it
right?
up.
Like he doesn't say that, but he's like, it's time to move forward now, right? It's time to move past this mountain, or it's time to, you've circled long enough, or get up.
Right.
So
There's more work.
we have to be tuned to him.
Right.
Because sometimes it's not other people or ourselves. Sometimes God's like, it is what it is. Suck it up, right? And you're like, oh. So I thought about that when I was reading that story. I was like, oh.
Well, because he's in control.
Yes.
And the work's
He
not
manages
done,
it all.
you
Yeah.
know?
Not
And
just-
sometimes when we get
not
through
till
with
the
the
end.
project, it's like, whoa, okay, this is good. And God's like, okay, we're looking at this and this and this. And it's like, I'm good right now.
Well, it's funny because yesterday we had the children's Easter party, right? We're done, like, whew, I'm taking a breather. And somebody's like, okay, what are we doing for VBS? And I'm like,
I know.
I need a moment. But then today, in the mail, the first shipment came, and I'm like, all right, Lord, I guess we're just going to move right into
Means
VBS.
let's go.
He was preparing you.
Yeah,
Ground
like, it's
running.
going to be coming tomorrow. Be
Right.
ready. So, yeah.
That's neat.
So how about, I just forgot my question, I'm sorry.
Well, that's okay. I will go into my.
Go ahead.
I liked Philippians 4:19 that goes along with what you were saying about God supplying your needs. But my God shall supply all your need according to his riches and glory by Christ Jesus. And I love Sarah Young. She does the Jesus is Calling. And the devotional I had was when, and she puts it in plain terms, you know. And she writes like God's just talking to you, you know, and I love that about it. And she says, when you sit quietly with me, I shine the light of my presence directly into your heart. In this heavenly light, peace grows abundantly and weeds shrivel up. And I thought, is that not so true? I mean, all these things in life are like weeds in a garden, just irritate those people. I mean, weeds grow faster than anything that you plant. But if we just stay focused on him,
Yeah.
and stay in his presence and just let him give us that peace, that calmness, that joy. And I know sometimes it's like, that sounds easy and it's so hard to do when you just, and everything in you is screaming out, but sometimes we just have to stand still, you know?
Well, we have to be willing to take that nap
Yeah.
that we were talking about
Yes.
earlier sometimes, you know.
Well, and don't forget the best part. Take the nap and have the cake, right? Like,
the cake.
Ooh, I like that part.
and then he took another nap. So,
Right.
but yeah, sometimes you have to just say, okay, you know what, I'm going to sit down for a little while. But it's important that we get back up, right? We can't just wallow in our self-pity.
Right.
We have to get back up.
And I think that's what's important, because I think life is so fast-paced these days. We get caught up in it, and sometimes it just overwhelms us. That when we find ourselves being overwhelmed, we need to say, okay, I need a break. And, you know, change your focus. You know, put it in perspective. Look at things as a compliment and not that they're just dumping on me, you know.
Yeah.
But you change your perspective and you quickly move on.
Yeah.
Instead of deciding, because it's a choice.
Yeah.
I'm going to stay
Definitely.
right here and I'm going to wallow in this
Yeah.
until I feel better. Well, you're not going to feel better because the devil's going to use that
Yeah.
to keep you off focus on God.
And I think when we take that break, it's got to be with God.
It's got
right?
to be. It's got to
just
be.
to reconnect, rekindle yourself with Him.
I mean, that's sort of like putting fuel in an automobile. You know, we have to take that in to be reminded.
Yeah.
He is what keeps us going.
Yeah.
Yeah. In Colossians, no, not Colossians, I don't know why I said that. Luke chapter 9, verse 23, it says, and then he said to them all, if anyone desires to come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross daily and follow me. And I think if we're all taking up our cross every day, we're not going to be so focused on what's going on for ourselves, you know,
Yeah.
that's got us so consumed and bogged down. We'll give it to God, and we, you know, pin it to the cross, and we go on
And
through
do it-
His strength.
And do it again tomorrow.
That's right.
Right. And we have to know that, you know, He's going to take care of us.
Yeah.
I mean, He takes care of the birds.
Mm-hmm.
He takes care of everything out in the wild. I
Mhm.
mean, they don't go hungry. He takes care of them. He takes care of us. So we have to look after people. I mean, that's our job,
Yeah.
you know, to do what He's called us to do, and to let people know how He can help them
Yeah.
and be that example.
Right. And like we were talking before we even started recording was you often want to tell other people to suck it up, Buttercup. But sometimes we need to come alongside those folks and, you know, help them through whatever situation they
Yeah.
may be in.
What can I help you do today? Sometimes, you know, our mess may be overwhelming. I know at work sometimes it is overwhelming.
Yeah.
I mean, my plate's full, and someone will come and say, hey, can you help me with this? And like you said, you know, sometimes you have to look at it as they're trusting you.
Mm-hmm.
And if you bark at them and say, no, I don't have time for you, I've got all this other stuff to do, and they're
Right.
like, and you call yourself a Christian?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, you're killing your testimony. And
Push them
two,
away.
you're missing an opportunity, because, you know, usually God's going to come up in some way.
Yeah.
I mean, even if I have to say, just thank you, Jesus, for, you know, helping me know what to do
Right.
and handle the situation, because it's amazing how if you include God in things that you do at work, it's amazing what He will help you through.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, I have been stuck and didn't know how to reconcile something and pray about it and get up and walk away and come back and bam,
Yeah.
it's looking me right in the face, and it's like, here it is.
Or I even think like for me, like difficult conversation that I'm gonna have, right? Like I know it's gonna be awful. Like I'm prepared for battle. Like let's go, and then I'm like, all right, what just happened, right? But it's
Right, it's
you know
gone.
praying
Pray.
before that, and not only for you for the right words, but prepare the other person.
Yeah, it changes things.
It does. It does.
And it's
So,
almost like, look and see what I can do if you just
Include me.
in it. And you know, you hear a lot of people say, oh, he's busy. He's got so many other things. He doesn't want to hear about all those little things. And it's like, you don't know how awesome my God is. He can handle all those little
Yep.
things and so much more.
And He wants to.
And He wants to.
He wants to be in every aspect of our life,
Right.
every minute
Yeah.
of our day. We just have to give it to Him. Be willing to, you know, give it up. I think a lot of times we think we can handle things on our own too, and then what happens? We end up becoming overwhelmed or
Frustrated.
just let me do it myself, and then
Yeah.
you get mad about it because they've let you do it by yourself, and you know, it's just this vicious cycle sometimes.
And how many times do we catch ourselves say, I should have prayed about that before I did that.
When it's all falling apart.
When
Yes.
it's all falling apart.
Lord, can you help me pick up all the pieces?
I know.
Now, how many examples of that do we see in the Bible? You know,
I know. Well, as we close out this session about Suck It Up, Buttercup, how would you guys tell our viewers or share with our viewers that they should be moving forward if they're feeling like they're stuck in self-pity?
So I had kind of three verses to kind of close this out. So the first one is Hebrews 10:23. So I'm going to read the verse and then kind of talk about it. So let us hold fast the confession of our hope without wavering, for He who promised is faithful. So when I read that, like hold fast, right? It's not hold slow. Sometimes you got to hold fast because it's things are moving fast to our hope. And I've had this thought a couple weeks now, maybe a month, right? Our hope has a name. Right, it's not a false hope. Our hope has a name, and it's in God. Without wavering. Doesn't say in the easy times and the non-frustrating times. Without wavering, for He who promised is faithful.
it's faithful.
So that really stood out to me. And then the other one was Philippians 3:13 and 14. So it says, "Brethren, I do not count myself to have apprehended, but one thing I do, forgetting those things which are behind." So we talked about that. Reaching forward to those things which are ahead. I press toward the goal for the prize of the upward call of God in Jesus Christ. So right
there.
Nowhere does that say myself. It's reaching toward the goal, but having that reassurance as we move forward that we have a hope and he has a name and his promises are true. Right. So you just have to keep holding on and moving forward and keep our focus on him.
That's right. Good word.
Very good word.
Pam, is there any thing you'd like to say to close out about how to move forward if you're feeling stuck in a pity party?
The thing that works best for me is just talk to him. I mean, your prayers don't have to be all these pretty words and everything. God knows your heart. And I think when you're real with him and you talk plainly and you unburden, you just let it out, that gives him an opportunity to come in and just hold you close and just love you through it. And it changes your attitude. It changes everything around you, because then you don't feel alone. And he has a way of just making you feel like everything's going to be okay. Especially when you just, instead of yelling at people and taking it out on everybody during your little self-pity party, that you just talk to him and just let him know how you feel, and it's the best medicine I think I've ever had. I mean, you walk away with such love from him.
Yeah, good word. What I'd like to say about moving forward through, if you feel like you're stuck in a self-pity party, would be to just find something in that situation to be thankful for. I think there's always something to be thankful for, no matter what we're dealing with. Keep your focus on the Lord, on Jesus, because he'll help you to find something to be thankful for.
Yes, he will. Him alone.
Yes.
That's right.
I mean,
and that's enough. It should be enough.
He's
right.
enough to be thankful for.
Well, I want to thank you for joining us. You can check us out on our website, which is findingthemore.org. We have some exciting events coming up, so just follow us, and until next time, keep moving forward.